An interesting trend we're seeing now just overall in Bachelor Nation and in dating culture is like people going back to people. Obviously, we know who we're, talking about most recently, Tyler and Hannah, Kelley and Peter. But just in general, do you think are you surprised by that trend? And do you think that those couples maybe have an even greater chance because they're kind of stepping away from the show, or less of a chance, or just anything?
Well, first of all, history repeats itself. This is not a trend. We do this. It's human nature. I mean, I've done it in my own relationships where there is that familiarity. You get scared or something traumatic happens or whatever that drives you back to something familiar. That happens a lot in relationships. Sometimes it's positive. Sometimes you find something fresh and new about each other that you maybe didn't recognize or appreciate. And sometimes it's still toxic and you went back to something that, why did I ever get back in it? And now I got to just break up again. But again, the Bachelor, Bachelorette, we don't invent things. This is a microcosm of what's going on in the real world. I mean, Peter going back to Kelley, there was this kind of unanswered question of, they had this chemistry. There was this karma with them running into each other all the time. And could they make this work? I think The Bachelor may be in a bad place for Kelley to be. She just wasn't a good fit. Not that she's a bad person. She's smart, she's beautiful, all those things, but it just wasn't a good fit for her. And I think maybe them, quarantining together might be a better environment.
What can you tell us about the new show and why should people who might be skeptical tune in?
It is Bachelor in Paradise meets A Star is Born. That's the best way to describe it. That's the elevator pitch. But also think much more Paradise, Bachelor, Bachelorette, less, American Idol type show. It really is about those relationships. If we've learned anything over the years, it is about forming those relationships, the sincere love. Then we're going to lean into the music part of it. Look, if you're skeptical, and I get that, just know that if you're a Bachelor fan, it's going to have that awesome familiarity. It's going to feel right. But then there's going to be this weird eccentric twist to it that you're not quite sure where it's going. That's why it's so good and so new and so fresh. And I think Bachelor Nation will absolutely, just gobble this thing up.
Can you talk a little bit about like how the music element is mixed into it and like how that format works? Because I think some people are a little confused by it.
Yeah, and that was the cool part about creating the show is we had to figure that out. What is more important? Is it these performances and being on stage? Is it the romance? And we've learned over the years it really has to start and end with a relationship. And so at first it is more like Paradise with the rose ceremonies. There's men and women. Women hand out the roses to the guys. Guys will then hand out roses to the women, and people will be going home based on those relationships, having nothing to do with the music. Music's always a part of the show on the dates, and they'll be at the house playing for each other. But it's not about the performances. Once we establish those relationships, then we get into actual musical performances in front of audiences, in front of celebrity judges, members of Bachelor Nation you guys are going to recognize. Then it is about those performances and the chemistry on stage. Do you believe this couple is really in love or falling in love?
The Bachelor is just like this expanding world. I never want it to go away. Has the show ever come to you though with an idea where you were like, that's not going to work, or a spin-off where you're like, I'm not so sure if I want to be part of that? Or are you always just like, let's try it out?
Yeah, I won't say which one. One of them has already come and gone that I did not want to be a part of. And I wasn't. There are dozens and dozens of ideas that we throw out, I throw out, Mike, everybody. And some of them come to fruition, and some of them are great ideas and they just don't happen. We were just talking about doing an older version of The Bachelor for seniors. I don't know where that stands now, that idea. The idea of summer and winter games was genius, and that actually worked. There's been a ton of ideas. Some come to fruition, some don't. But we always throw stuff against the wall and try to be creative. When I heard this idea at first, I was a little skeptical. I'm like, A Star is Born meets Bachelor? Like, I need to know what this looks like. And we all have to kind of put our creative hats on and figure this out, which was kind of fun.
We know that Lady Gaga is a Bachelor fan. Has she reached out about this idea?
She has not. It's funny. You're right. So Gaga tweeted after Peter's season. I'm like, oh my gosh, Gaga is a part of Bachelor Nation. Are you kidding me? Now my long con and my goal is to get Gaga on Listen to Your Heart. I mean, this is a match made in heaven. Mm-hmm. And really, she was the inspiration for this show. I mean, A Star is Born, Gaga, Bradley Cooper, that moment at the Oscars, when I thought they were just going to have sex on stage. Could we create that kind of chemistry? Could we do that with The Bachelor? That was the idea. So I would love for Gaga, season 2, Gaga, if you're listening, come be a part of our family.